When people ask me why should their organisation move from technology push to insight-driven innovation, I often start by telling them a joke. And it goes like this. There's a man in a balloon and he's floating over the countryside and he's completely lost. And he looks down and he sees another guy walking his dog on a hill. So he shouts down, he says, "Excuse me, do you know where I am?" And the guy with the dog looks up and says, "Don't worry, I know exactly where you are. You're hanging in a basket underneath a balloon 30 feet from the ground." So the guy in the balloon says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, let me just stop you there. Do you work in R&D? And the guy with the dog says, "Yes. How could you possibly know that?" And the guy in the balloon says, "Well, because the information you just gave me is statistically accurate, but it's also completely useless." So the guy with the dog says, "Well, let me stop you there. Do you work in marketing?" And the guy in the balloon says, "Yes. How could you possibly know that?" And he says, "Because you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going to. You appear to be completely lost. But in the space of this very short conversation, somehow you've just made that my fault." And when I think about that story, it reminds me of the technology companies that I deal with every day. You see, if I speak to marketing, they tell me this tale of woe, that R&D bring them technologies that nobody asks for and nobody needs. It's like a bad Christmas present they receive 3 months before launch, and they're told to wrap it into a value proposition, retrospectively backfit an explanation against it, and communicate the value of it, which no one could do. And when I go and see R&D and I put that accusation to them, they say, "Well, it's not quite how we see it." You see, what happens in our view is marketing sends someone to see us, and the marketing person turns up and says, "Now, this is what the customer needs and this is what the customer wants." And when they're challenged on that, "How do you know that?" they say, "Well, because my gut tells me. You know, I'm an intuitive, fly by the seat of my pants kind of marketing person. I just feel this in my very core. This is what they need." So R&D think, "Okay, well, we'll start making that." And even before they've begun that, the marketing person they spoke to has now left, because marketing people get bored very easily and they have a very short attention span. And they go off and get a new job, and a new marketing person arrives, and this marketing person sits down and says, "Whoa, guys, that's not what the customer needs. This is what the customer needs." And R&D say, "Well, how do you know that?" And they say, "Because my gut tells me." Now, what I need everybody to understand when we're building an insight-driven process for their organization is this isn't something that people make up. The customer needs are not opinions created with inside the company. They're created by talking to the customer, and then they are validated. It is important that we understand this isn't just one customer's demand, but it is what the entire market requires. You know, I don't think marketing is considered to be a discipline in the way that R&D is, or in the way that finance is, but it absolutely should be. You know, creativity, at the heart of creativity, is discipline. And insight-driven innovation, value proposition creation, customer needs, the validation of those, that it is important that we approach this as a discipline with robust data that the organization can get behind and trust when they develop products, so that the R&D department can put down a technology roadmap for the long term, knowing that the opinion on what the customer needs isn't going to change.